I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and today I'm going to rank the guitar solos on Frank Zappa's The Roxy Performances release, released after he passed away, a ZFT release. This is, I think, part 16 of my ranking and reviewing the solos within the context of a single album, and then ranking that album in the context of all the other albums based on guitar solos only. So what I'll do is I'll go through the solos one by one, and then I'll put the list up on the screen so you can see them, and then I'll show you where this album ranks guitar solo wise only compared to the other albums I've done thus far, with the plan to do all of them at some point. There were 27 solos on this release. This is the 2 shows from December 9th, the 2 shows from December 10th, the invite-only sound check private filming show from the 8th, and then the rehearsals from before that. Some of this material has been covered on 4 releases. This, I think, was the final of them. This is all the Roxy stuff. There were 3 other Roxy dedicated releases, the famous Roxy and Elsewhere, which had 3 sides of this, and then some material from Spring 74, the best solos on that release. There was a Roxy by Proxy release, which had cherry-picked some material from this shows. There was Roxy the Soundtrack, which was the soundtrack. There were also some releases on the Stage series. 27 of them. I'm guessing that as I get to the point, I previously discussed the 88 tour. When I'm done with all the 73 solos, I'm going to discuss the 73 tour solo-wise. I'm going to guess that 73 is possibly the last, is the bottom, will possibly be my least favorite tour with regards to solos. I think it is by far the least interesting thing of this tour. The band is incredible. It's the 2 drummers. You got Ruth on percussion, Duke, Fowler, Brock. Great band, high energy. Simmons at that soundcheck show. The material is good. I love the songs. I love the new material Frank was bringing in. It's sort of this weird jazz, prog, fusion, Zappa-esque mix of stuff, like so many iconic songs come out of this era. But the solos, I think, are the least interesting thing. The Fowler trombone solos are more interesting. I think Duke's keyboard solos are generally more interesting. There are moments that are good throughout the tour because it's Frank, and there will always be good moments. And the solos that are not... The solos are not good because I'm comparing them to every other Frank Zappa tour. They're just, none of these solos, for the most part, are things you're going to go like, dude, listen to Frank Zappa, listen to this song, this solo will blow your mind. I just, not a lot of these solos are that aggressive. They're not really breaking too many sort of boundaries that Frank has previously established. I think a lot of it may have to do with the fact that he's got 2 drummers, that he's dealing with 2 very different drummers than when he had like 2 drummers back in the 60s. It's just a very different, the rhythm section is dynamic in a whole completely different way than he had previously had. So I think maybe he was figuring that out because things do get more interesting in 74. But it just seems like he's very much in this very narrow pocket for a lot of the solos, not really going out of it. Like a lot of like the imagery I have is really him just like surfing, or not even surfing. It's like snowboarding. He's just going up and down these same walls no matter what the song. Maybe he's getting up every once in a while doing a backflip, or maybe, he's getting more air on this solo than he does on another solo. But they're just not that much different. Out of the 27, it's really only the top 5 that I would encourage you to go check out. The other 22, I'm like, they go from good Frank Zappa to really good Frank Zappa. I don't even think they hit great. So I'm not going to talk much at all about the first 22. If something stands out of my notes that I want to mention, I'll mention it, but I'm not going to talk about those. When I get to the top 5, I'll spend a little more time. I'll put the list up at the end. It's color-coded by show, so you can also see which of these shows, including the rehearsal, including the soundcheck show, are the best solo-wise. It is interesting the way this plays out, and then I'll rank it. So let's do this. I've already talked for almost 5 minutes. In from bottom to number 5. Number 27, the Pygmy Twilight Rehearsal. solo. It's a rehearsal solo. Number 26, the Cosmic Debris from the first show on the 10th. Just like Frank is almost not there. It's like Frank is like half asleep, and he's like, hey, somebody's like, Frank, play the guitar. He's like, oh, let me do this. Yeah, just nothing there. Number 25, Dickie's Such an Asshole from the second December 12th show. Yeah, just another Dickie solo. Number 24, Penguin in Bondage from the second December 10th show. I meant to say December 10th for Dickie's. I don't know what I said. Yeah, it goes on long enough where you feel like maybe he's looking for some ideas, but then it just doesn't get much more interesting than that. No, that's not that. That's the Pygmy solo that goes on long enough. Yeah. Oh, this one I wrote, the band sounds great, but Frank is just not having it. He's just not bringing it. Number 23, the Redunzel from the first December 10th show. All of these have been December 10th shows or rehearsal shows so far. Feels like it's just a race to the finish. As soon as he starts, he's just trying to reach the end so they can go on with the song. That is 23. 22, Penguin in Bondage from December 10th, the first show. Or I already said that. I don't know. I'm so confused. It's the same songs over and over again. It's redeemed towards the end, but it doesn't do much until the very end. Number 21, the Redunzel from the December 10th second show. We've yet to hit December 9th yet, people. This Redunzel, just another race to the finish, though Tom Fowler has some pretty good moments. Number 20 is the December 10th first show, Dickie's Such an Asshole. Yeah, this is the one on the You Can't Do That on Stage 3. This is the solo from there. And there's one more Dickie's on this list that he could have released other than this one that has a better solo, and it's at 19. We're finally to December 9th. It is a Dickie's, interestingly enough. Yeah, kind of good. The groove is really good. The band is bringing it, but again, it's a Dickie solo. Number 19, back to December 10th, the first Pygmy Twilight. It's just a minute long of Frank playing as quickly as he can. It is just a flurry of notes. Number 17 is another Pygmy Twilight. This is from the Soundcheck show on the 8th. This is, yeah, it goes on for quite a while. Feels kind of cohesive. It's not bad. Yeah, it's not a bad little solo. Napoleon is there a lot, I think, ad-libbing and doing stuff. But yeah, it's kind of interesting, not great, but Frank's kind of bringing it. Number 16 is the rehearsal of Father Oblivion. There is a solo in this Father Oblivion. I'm not sure the solo is all that good, but it's really neat to hear a solo in this context. It's neat over the changes. It's just nice and easy and laid back. And you can almost see like Frank's like am I going to solo in this song? Am I not going to solo in this song? He's kind of feeling it out. Song wouldn't last long throughout the tour, so Frank gave up on it. So it's interesting that they did bring it back and we're rehearsing it at this point. And so that's a pretty interesting solo. I don't know if it's a good solo, but it's neat to hear it in a Father Oblivion. Number 16, back to the 9th, Penguin in Bondage from the very first show. Kind of feels like it has something to say, but again, it's just kind of a Penguin solo. 14 is the Penguin in Bondage from the Soundcheck on December 8th. Yeah, Frank is kind of attacking, not too frenetic. This actually, we've jumped up a little bit in scores at this point. Kind of feels pretty good. I think this might be the best Penguin in Bondage solo of the run, was from the first Soundcheck show on the 8th. Interesting. 13 is the Bebop Tango from the second December 10th show. It's one of those very loose jams at sort of the end of the Bebop Tango. This band did that well when Frank decided to just kind of jam during like Don't You Ever Watch That Thing, or decided to jam at the end of Bebop Tango. Those were some pretty interesting moments. I don't know if the solos themselves were like interesting if you like xenochronize them and remove the solo and put it over a different rhythm section. I'm not sure the solos are bringing that much, but the overall vibe works and it's fun, and it would have been awesome to see live. Number 12 is Redunzel from December 9th, the very first show. Very skittish vibe, very upbeat. Definitely not one of your more dramatic Redunzels. It's one of your more like weird Redunzels, but has kind of a nice melody, that like a nice melodic tone to it. The number 11 is back to December 10th. The first show, Montana. Montana just always sounds good because the band sounds so good with this rhythm. Frank, he kind of can't go wrong. Some really good Duke playing support. It's got its moments. It's Montana. It's always a fun upbeat solo. Number 10 is the very first Cosmic Debris, the very first solo on this. Really good opening solo, very purposeful, very direct. It has a really good feel about it. Again, Frank knows how to open shows, and sometimes he just delivers the perfect solo to start a run. This is the perfect solo for what I think turns out to be either the best, the second best, maybe the best of the solos. The two December 9th shows, much better than December 10th. So that's the Cosmic Debris. Number 9, the Bebop Tango from December 9th, the first show. It's a Green Onions jam. It's just a straight, no, this is from the second show, Bebop Tango. December 9th, the second show. Straight up, just like a Green Onions jam. And I think like the inspiration for the jam coming from Green Onions, I think even Frank says, play Green Onions. You can hear him say that. It's interesting that they're jamming on it. Solo doesn't kind of ultimately go anywhere, but the early enthusiasm kind of carries the solo. Number 8 is the Chunga's Revenge from that same show. Frank's a lot of playing around, searching for like a main motif or something to like play, to go with. Nothing really much happens, but it's a Chunga solo, so it kind of diversifies the landscape from everything else we're hearing. So that's kind of interesting. Number 7 is the Pygmy Twilight from the second show on December 10th. By far the best solo of the last two shows. I think maybe that Montana solo is pretty good. But this is the one that just kind of goes on long enough where Frank feels like he's starting to search for new ideas because he's played so long. And it is at that moment when you can see he's like trying something new and just trying to prolong it that things get interesting. So, kind of redeems itself towards the end. Number 6 from the first December 9th show, Montana. Awesome. Really good. Yes, it's a Montana. These are always tasty. Number 5, the I'm the Slime from the second December 9th show. Frank released this on stage 1. It is a great sounding, groovy, funky. It is what I'm the Slime is supposed to do. This is where we're jumping up. The difference between that Montana and I'm the Slime, this I think is we're making a significant leap in quality. Number 4 is the Dupree's Paradise from the December 10th show, the first December 10th show. Very bubbling early. I love just the groove in this. It's got that very kind of do groove kind of just bubbling underneath. Frank is very playful in this. These solos don't really go anywhere and don't reach like these epic sort of emotional peaks or anything. But Frank is Frank at his most exploratory. He's kind of searching around. He's playing. He's sketching ideas. He finds something. He goes with it. The rhythm section is just so busy, bubbling underneath without ever being overwhelming. It's just an overall great space, and I really like it. There are better Dupree's Paradise solos from this tour, but it's very interesting and it's engaging, and I really like this Frank mode. Number 3, the Dupree's Paradise from the first December 9th show. Those are at 4 and 3, the Dupree's. This one has some Tumirshi Doreen quotes. It's maybe a little more playful early on, kind of gets weirder towards the end, maybe definitely goes more places than the one on the 10th. But again, the overall tone is not one of building to a climactic peak as much as it is exploring all these different areas and ways to start solos and ways to get weird. And they're playful in the best ways. Number 2, don't you ever watch that thing from that second December 9th show. This is just like a slow into a full-on band jam where they're just riding a groove. It feels good. It's just like, I think there's maybe a Pygmy Twilight tease in here or something. It's just like, it's just a full band jam. This is what this band does the best. When Frank is not working within like a structured solo and he's like building a jam from scratch and the band goes with him and he's kind of leading the charge, this is what they do best. And the number 1 solo, I think it was also, no, somebody said it was number 1, but it was one of my favorite solos off You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore, Stage 1, Volume 1. Big Swifty. It's a great Big Swifty. I think this is maybe even quite a bit better than that Don't You Ever Watch That Thing. This is by far, I would argue, the best solo on here. It is a great, great Frank solo. The band sounds good behind him. He's tearing it up. He sounds purposeful. There's feedback, and when he comes in with this great wah thing in the beginning, it is an all-around fantastic solo. Like, why he couldn't bring this energy to all the other ones, I don't know. Also, there is, I forgot to mention the Montana, the one that was way up at number 6, is the one that Frank did release on stage 4. That's the solo from stage 4. So Frank did make a good decision there. But yeah, 27 solos. There they are, right there. I'm going to just not talk a lot right now because I actually don't know if the entire list is going to fit on the screen at once until I am editing this. So you are either going to see half the list and then half the list right now, or you've been looking at the list the entire time. And now I'm about to wrap up and be done and go on to slowly say that right here is where I would put this album. It is my least favorite album I have reviewed so far. Again, The Big Swiftie is fantastic. I'm the Slime towards the top. Montana towards the top. Those have been released elsewhere. Yes, the Duprees are really interesting and good, but I'm not sure they're good enough to salvage the other solos. The Don't You Ever Watch That Thing is really, really fun and groovy and awesome. But again, we're only talking about solos. There's 5, maybe 6 really good solos. The rest of them, but yeah, that's it. Also, one of the big notes I wrote is that a lot of this is there's a lack of drama in his solos. It's one speed and one tempo. And I think that's what makes the Dupree's Paradise so interesting, is he's definitely playing with that tempo and building things and not immediately just jumping in and going. So it's just not a very dramatic, not a very aggressive, it's just not a very attacking tour for solos. And I like it when Frank attacks. I appreciate when he doesn't much more when I've also been just indulged and oversaturated with when he does. So yeah, that's it. My least favorite so far. So if you're looking for great Frank Zappa guitar solos, don't start with this release. I'm going to follow this up by talking about the other 3 releases. And now that I've ranked these solos, literally just plug in those scores and say, guitar solo wise, which of those is the best. Though Roxy and Elsewhere does have a leg up because it's got that 74 stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Thoughts, comments, all that stuff. Subscribe, like, share, and most importantly, go listen to music, people. Go listen to all the music.